I need to build a better desk. The one that I have now is pretty old and just damaged all over. It also has a terrifying wobble to it, and I just want it to be more functional. So for this build, I need to completely start from scratch. First up, I want a larger desk. I want it to be much wider than what I currently have to give me a lot of work area. Second, I want this to have elements of a workbench to it, like an overhead shelf or some wall space along the back that can be utilized for something like tool storage with a pegboard. Third, I want to add some drawers underneath for additional storage of smaller items. And I want all of this to be stylized, to have this modernized, stripped down industrial feeling to it. So I had some ideas for this skeleton wireframe of aluminum linking everything together. Now that is the current plan, and the most recent design addition is over here. This is an old sit-stand desk that one of my friends gave to me, so I can use the adjustable legs as a base point to build everything off of. So we can begin with the aluminum. I need to get a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood first, since that's going to be the actual guide for the aluminum. Once I have that, I can start to dice up the aluminum into the lengths that I need. I divided the wireframe of the desk model into each cut, and then I planed it out so that I could maximize the size that the desk will be. The actual cuts of the aluminum turn out super clean, but one problem is I don't really have dust collection, so it kind of just makes 1,000 little sparkly razor sharp confetti flakes that get everywhere. As soon as I started making cuts though, I realized that the guide and the plan that I made was kind of useless. I had made this digital model with imperial units, and the extruded aluminum is metric. So the 3/4 inches I rounded to is actually 0.78. So most of these cuts I just had to measure as I went to make sure that it all still fits and was aligned, because this is somewhat expensive material and I just don't want to mess it up. I messed up. Look, in all fairness, I'm illiterate. My eyes saw 1'8", but my brain saw 18 inches. Luckily, it was only one piece, so I got that recut and now everything is done. I can now tap and drill holes into the ends of all of these so that all of the parts can get assembled. I watched a quick video on how to do this and it seems pretty straightforward. I just need to spin the tap in here and it should turn this 5mm hole into a threading for an M6 bolt. I forgot to buy WD-40 or any cutting oil that would help me with this, so I'm just using avocado oil, which, probably isn't the best, but let's just pretend it's fine. You know how the saying goes that if the oil's good enough for me to cook hash browns with, it's good enough for me to cut through aluminum. Or something. I don't know, man, who cares? To be able to actually tighten this down, I need to drill a hole through these to make access for the top bolt once it's actually slid into the track. And for that, I made a quick little jig here made from an 8-second laser cut file and a terrifying rusty nail. Essentially, this will find the center point of the corresponding piece after it's slid on the end. And after one quick hit to the nail, we have a center punch to work off of. And now, let's just do that like 78 more times. So all of the parts so far have gone together like unbelievably well. It's also very fun to just put this stuff together. It feels almost like Legos, with everything kind of just slotting together so nicely. So the 2 drawer boxes that go under the table are put together, and the frame for the main table are all set and ready. So let's work on the tabletop. I want my desk to have that wood shop feeling to it, so I'm going to use black laminate as the finish for the plywood. This already was not off to a great start because the laminate I originally ordered got shot? I have never seen this before. Somebody shot at the box a couple times and one blew a hole clean through the box and my laminate. Look at this, man. I needed that. After getting some replacement laminate, I started to lay it all out. But this is the point that I went a little rogue and off plan. Seeing that the laminate was just a little oversized, I figured that I could actually squeeze the main table and the top shelf side by side and then save some laminate for another project that I have. I didn't think this out. This is generally a bad idea. This provides little to no excess on the laminate, so it has to get perfectly aligned with the wood. And with contact cement, there's not really any second chances. This is a bad idea. No, this is a good idea. This is an okay idea. At the time, I figured that I could just do half and half. So I clamped down one side where it's already aligned with the wood, and then I applied the adhesive to the other side, so when that's done, it's already in place for me to just do the second half. By some miracle, this didn't end terribly. But when it actually came to doing the big piece, I came to my senses and decided to actually do this the correct way. Nah, I'm kidding. Of course I rolled the dice again and did my stupid tactic. But once again, it seemed to work out. And after a while, they can get smushed together and the minimal excess can get trimmed down. Now, normally you would trim this down with something like a router, but I'm gonna try and just score and then break it to get it all to size, because my router here is not real. I don't have one. In fact, none of this is actually real. I'm just half decent with Photoshop, and the reason these videos take so long to make is because I have to generate a whole fake living room each time. But let's just keep pretending for now. Trimming it all down by scoring it was a little scary, but it did work. With the laminate on, I can now deal with the sides. All of the edges are getting wrapped with maple veneer. It'll be a little bit more clean than the plywood edge, and it will help everything match in the end. Once it's all on, it can get stained and then finished with polyurethane, since it's going to be much harder to do that after the table is assembled. Now that a lot of the groundwork is set, we can bring back in the aluminum. Getting the aluminum attached to the plywood was a little more involved than I originally expected. The plan that I had was to just add a threaded insert. What I failed to recognize was that the threaded insert would be close to just blowing out of the side of the plywood, since it's so close to the edge to be aligned with the aluminum. So I changed plans to add a series of angles on the interior here that would allow it to be screwed in farther away from that edge. After an entire morning adventure of deciding to try and make my own brackets and that going horribly wrong, nope, I'm done. I do not want to do this anymore. I instead found some brackets that should work after some slight modifications and tweaks. So now, instead of having just a threaded insert and a bolt, I have 6 hardware components for each connection. The wood screw gets a countersunk washer to hold it steady and to better hold to the angle. And for the metal side, I need to move down to M5 bolts and to have a T-slot nut to be able to actually assemble this all in the tiny space of the angle. I did a quick little test fit here to make sure that everything actually works. So I put most of this together, but I'm going to need to take it apart anyways because I need to work on the drawers that go underneath the desk. But these are going to be a little unique and slightly annoying to make, which I feel like is just the tagline of the videos at this point. Each of these lower boxes will have 3 drawers that go inside them. Because there is no wall panel here to actually screw the supports into, the plan is to just have minimal plywood that's running in parallel with the soft close drawer slides to mount to, and then it flares out at the end so it can bolt back into the aluminum. I want to put matching veneer on these pieces before I actually laser cut them out, so I did just a quick pass on the laser to score where I will need to put the veneer since it's only 2 inches wide. After that, I can put them back into the laser and cut them for real. As for the actual drawer boxes, they again are laser cut from plywood with finger lap joints at the corners, which I absolutely hate. I don't know why. It's the easiest way to make a box out of laser cut wood, but I just think that finger lap joints are ugly 9 out of 10 times. Fortunately though, the box is getting a dark stain to it, so in the end, you won't really be able to tell. And after that, it's just rinse and repeat for all of the drawers at this point.
Chill on my own, just wanna do me, just wanna dose, just wanna live and see how it goes. And the goals just keep on going, yeah. This life we live is a war. When there's love and the brave, you know. When there's love and the brave, you know. All inside you, all in the soul.
Well, this ended up being so much more work than I originally expected. And trying to get the front of the box aligned with the aluminum just right was a complete nightmare. But somehow I got this constructed within like a 1/16 of an inch, which at this point I will take. That's kind of a miracle, and I'm just happy to never have to do it again. Oh. With both of them done, I can focus on the actual drawer fronts. The front panel is going to be made out of 3/4 inch maple to match the rest of the wood on the project. And I also came across a really cool Japanese carving technique that I think I want to try out on the front panels here. I already have a board started here, but I'm going to cut this down into 4 parts that can get joined together, and then these can get cut down again to be flush with the aluminum sides and then diced up into the 3 drawer fronts on either side. Now, doing something like this should be pretty easy, but my table saw fence is slightly out of square, and I also don't have a crosscut jig. And this is definitely one of those times that for all of the work and the effort I went into finding a different solution, I could have just fixed the underlying issue, but I didn't, and I decided to just YOLO it instead on a bad idea. But this is when I learned I am the Michael Jordan of eyeballing straight cuts on a bandsaw. Whoa, this cut is like nearly perfect. Look at this, man. I did it again. This is unreal. I have never made cuts this good. Where's a flat surface? Are you kidding me? I am a generational talent on the bandsaw. That one could have been better. So the dream of carving out the front panels was pretty short-lived. I tested out carving on a small scrap piece, and oh my god, it is so hard. Both the actual carving and the maple itself. Something like pine works great because it is so soft, but I can only get the tiniest little slices out of this at a time. And I don't think that's gonna look particularly great on these, so I'm gonna hold off on doing that for now. I really wanted to do this all by hand, but realistically, this is probably a job for like a router and a swivel jig, but you know, I still don't have a router, I just need to go buy a router. So I'm just gonna clean these up for now, and I can always come back and carve them later. On each of these, I need to slightly inset the hardware from the top and the back, because it is a really tight fit between these drawers. With the hardware completed, I can apply the golden stain to all of the maple drawer fronts, and at the same time, realize something terrible. Hey guys, so what the heck? You have been watching me build this table, and not one of you has stopped me and told me that maple is like notoriously difficult to stain. Overall, these look like absolute garbage. Some parts turn out okay, but it is just incredibly splotchy. And I have sanded and stained these 3 times because I thought I was doing something wrong before I went to the internet and learned. So I'm gonna sand these all down again and just go with straight polyurethane and hope that the color difference isn't too much. With the fronts needing to dry for a little bit, I can work on the back in the meantime. The rest of the aluminum can get put into the slots that were cut out earlier and are just tightened down from there. I did decide to eliminate the 2 side panels on the back and just keep the left and right open since it was feeling a little bit enclosed. But for the back 3 panels, they can just get slid into place and they just run nicely in between the slots of the aluminum. Currently, the panels just butt up directly to the surface of the table. So I decided to 3D print a little track for that wood panel to sit in, just to make that end a little nicer of a detail. Attention to detail is what makes a project good. So when PCBWay reached out to see if I had any projects that they could help and sponsor, I knew exactly what to do. The end joints where the connections are and in locations where I had to saw through the top of the table to be able to connect to the aluminum didn't always turn out great. So I designed an end cap that slips down and just covers the edge of those holes. And another one that can just slip into the end to clean up the corner pieces a bit. With PCBWay, I can actually print these parts in aluminum so that it actually matches everything else. I took my files that I made and I uploaded those and then selected the settings that I wanted, the material I wanted, and then I watched the production bar fill, and soon I had 3D printed parts on my doorstep ready to use. So thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. And if you have a project that you're working on and need manufacturing assistance, check them out through the link down below to see all of the different ways that they can help you. I got the last parts of the top shelf on and secured after going through a process of building and disassembling this multiple times to make sure that everything fit together, since the order of operations on actually constructing this is pretty tedious to get it all anchored down correctly. Once I had all of that in place, I started on the tool wall, and this is just going to be a pegboard that projects off that back surface. For this, I made my own custom-sized IKEA Scottish board, since it was about 4 times cheaper for me to just make my own instead of buying one and cutting it down. To connect it to the back panel, I made these 3D printed little offsets so that the hooks that go on the board can just sit behind here for everything that's going to be mounted in the future. A 1/4-inch bolt just gets threaded through all of the holes of the board, the 3D print, and the back panel, and then it just gets secured on the backside with a washer and a nut. I finished up connecting the drawer fronts to each of the boxes now that they are dry, and with getting those 6 connected, that was the last piece of the puzzle. So now these can get mounted to the underside of the plywood. For these connections, I added in some additional hardware to reinforce the joints because these are the locations where the drawers might want to pivot if they get bumped. I used in-track angles for the front because they will be a little bit more hidden, and just T-plates on the back, with the final connection being a bolt that is threaded through 2 angles that are offset from the front so that the drawer faces will be aligned with the edge of the table when everything is completed. And with that, the desk is done for now. There are a lot of desk mods that I'm working on right now to really bring this thing into its final form. But until then, I have a playlist building of all of the desk remodel videos if you're interested in watching the other parts of the series.